He sold his car, emptied his savings, and wired $100,000 to a woman he loved, a soldier trapped in a war zone. There was just one devastating problem: she never existed. This is the true story of how a kind heart was broken and a life was turned upside down by a ghost, a digital phantom created for one purpose: to steal. It all started with a simple friend request. For Mark, a recently retired widower living a quiet life, the notification was a welcome distraction. The profile picture showed a woman named Sergeant Sophia, a U.S. Army medic with a warm smile and kind eyes, posed in her fatigues against a dusty, foreign landscape. Her profile was filled with photos of her in uniform, of her team, of the children she was helping. It looked so real. She sent a message saying she admired his posts about his late wife and his volunteer work. She said his kindness reminded her of her own father. Mark, lonely and flattered, replied. Their connection was instant and intense. They messaged from morning until night. Sophia's messages were a whirlwind of emotion. One moment, she described the harrowing dangers of a patrol, the sounds of distant explosions keeping her awake. The next, she'd send him poems and talk about the simple life she dreamed of after her tour ended. She painted a picture of a future with him, a small house, a garden, quiet evenings together. For Mark, who had been adrift in grief, Sophia was a lifeline. He was falling in love, not just with her, but with the future she promised. After a few weeks, the first request for money came. It was small. Sophia said her military phone service was unreliable and she needed to buy a special international data card to keep talking to him. It was only a couple of $100. Mark didn't hesitate. How could he deny her the one thing that kept them connected? A week later, she needed money for special medical supplies for a local child, supplies the Army couldn't provide quickly enough. Again, Mark sent it. Each request was wrapped in a story of heroism or desperation. Each dollar he sent made him feel like he was part of her world, a partner in her mission. The requests began to escalate. One day, Sophia messaged him in a panic. She had found a stash of gold bars hidden by a fallen dictator. This was her ticket out, she said. If she could just get it shipped out of the country, they could start their life together immediately. But there were fees, customs fees, security fees, diplomatic clearance fees. The amounts were staggering thousands, then tens of thousands of dollars. Mark started to feel a knot of unease in his stomach. This sounded wrong. He cautiously voiced his doubts. Sophia's reaction was swift and brutal. She accused him of not trusting her, of not loving her. She sent him tearful voice messages, her voice cracking as she described how alone she was, how he was her only hope. She even had a diplomat and a UN official email him with official-looking documents, complete with stamps and letterheads, confirming the story and detailing the transfer process. They pressured him, telling him the funds were in jeopardy and that Sophia's safety was at risk if he didn't act fast. The emotional manipulation was overwhelming. Mark's love for Sophia and his fear for her safety overrode his judgment. He started liquidating his life. First went his savings, the nest egg he'd built over 40 years of work. Then, he sold his classic car, the one he'd lovingly restored with his late wife. He took out a second mortgage on his house. Each wire transfer was a stab of anxiety, but it was immediately soothed by Sophia's promises. Just this one last payment. My love, she'd write, then I'm coming home to you. We'll pay it all back and be together forever. He clung to that promise like a drowning man to a raft. All told, he sent over $100,000. The day Sophia was supposed to arrive, Mark went to the airport. He bought flowers, wore his best suit, and stood by the international arrivals gate, his heart pounding with anticipation. He scanned every face that came through the doors. An hour passed. Then, too, he checked his phone. No new messages. He tried calling the numbers the diplomat had given him. They were disconnected. He frantically typed a message to Sophia. He hit send. A moment later, a notification popped up. This account is no longer available. His blood ran cold. He refreshed and refreshed again. The profile, the photos, the hundreds of messages, all of it was gone. It was as if Sophia had never existed at all. The realization hit him like a physical blow. The soldier, the love of his life, the future he had poured his entire fortune into it was all a lie. There was no Sophia. There was no gold. There was only a team of sophisticated criminals on the other side of the world who had expertly studied his vulnerabilities and played on his deepest desire for connection. He was a victim of a romance scam, a particularly cruel form of fraud that targets not just a person's wallet, but their heart. He stood in the middle of the bustling airport, holding a bouquet of wilting flowers, utterly and completely broken. The aftermath was a nightmare. Mark was not only broke, but he was also drowning in shame and grief. He felt foolish, embarrassed to tell his children what had happened. This is one of the scammer's most powerful weapons, the shame that keeps victims silent. But Mark, after hitting his lowest point, found the courage to speak up. He reported the crime to the authorities and, more importantly, he told his family. Their support was his true lifeline. They didn't judge him, they helped him pick up the pieces. Mark's story is a heartbreaking but vital warning. These scammers are masters of psychology. They create elaborate, believable characters and invest months in building trust. They isolate their victims and use high-pressure tactics to cloud their judgment. So, how can you protect yourself and your loved ones? Be cautious of anyone you meet online who quickly professes strong feelings. Never, ever send money to someone you have not met in person, no matter how convincing their story is. Always be skeptical of requests for secrecy. And most importantly, talk to friends or family if you have any doubts. A fresh perspective can break the spell. If you think you or someone you know might be a victim of a romance scam, please don't be afraid to seek help. Report it to your local law enforcement and to the fraud departments of the websites or apps where the scam occurred. The most important step is to talk about it and break the cycle of silence. Thank you for listening to Mark's story. If it helps even one person avoid this kind of pain, then sharing it was worth it. Please like this video and subscribe to our channel for more stories that matter. Stay safe out there.